So I finished Hentai Prison. It was highly rated like a year or two back, and I mean there was like a lot of 10s, and there's still kind of a thing happening now for that as well. I just threw that in the trash because I'd be overly like critical over it for no reason, and it kind of fucks up my scores. And even now, I wouldn't give it a 10, but I can see why people put it that high. Part of it is based on your style of humor. It's a lot of dad humor and some referential humor sprinkled around. Part of it is like, oh, if you enjoy seeing their specific prison lives and their interactions, or you enjoy some common like prison movie heists and plans and like escapes and shit. Maybe some plan reversals where it's the whole planned out that, hey, you'd outsmart me, outsmarting you type of thing. A lot of it is like silly and fun, has a lot of different ideas, to the point that if you haven't read that much, you can point back to this VN where you're reading other stuff. There's moments where you can think of like, hey, this reminds you of Cross Channel, and other parts remind you of Chaos Child or even Kira. Hell, there's even parts where it remind me of Dual Savior. Not to say that these are like all the originators, it's just the first place I remember them from. I can go on a bit on that type of thing, but honestly, I think I already spoiled enough from just these examples. But before I go further into this, I guess I should mention that VNDB has it set as like a sequel to Nukatashi 2, and it kinda is, but it's the same lane where knowing Chaos Head made a specific route in Chaos Child better. You have a minor character here and there, though the focus is mainly on one early on. Consider like the Starsky and Hutch movie where it shows the TV versions of them at the end. It's like, oh, that's awesome. It can be a great cameo for like the fans, but it doesn't really affect new people. It's to the point that you can probably just find some Nukatashi synopsis and it'd be more than enough for what you need. So back on topic, you should start the title with certain expectations. Despite the title, it's not a porn focused thing. Honestly, the H scenes are pretty basic at best. There's maybe 3 that I could say like, hey, it pertains to the plot in a minor way or have some like kind of update to the characters or in their development or some shit. The other is, I don't consider the title like most of the prison movies where the focus is like on a specific goal. The central plot is not about escaping or getting in prison to do some other motive kind of thing. It's like, oh, I have to kill this guy. It's none of that. These are all subplots. They eventually outright tell you. It's mostly about the characters interacting with each other, and in some ways I consider this a spoiler, but you'd come out liking the title a lot more if you just know like, hey, it's not about prison shit, it's about characters interacting with each other. It's like, alright, awesome. Suichiro is the main character. He's always streaking after getting caught like a few times. Each time he goes through like a few tests and gets the results, it's like, oh, he's mentally normal. They finally got tired of his shit and get sent to Tulip Prison. It's the Hentai Prison, right? Basically a place where you get sent if you're too much of a deviant type of thing. They're basically called the sickos inside. He's the new guy, he gets tricked into some bullshit, and now he's the section's bitch until he figures out how to like get them back or how to solve the issue and shit like that. There's a lot of faffing about and nothing actually happening for good chunks of time. I'd say it's the worst in the last section of the common route and then most of the first route. And the common route section is mainly because it's worse than anything else before it. It's the first time the whole cast gets introduced to each other and works on like something. So you get Chisato, Taeka, and Noah. Before this part, it was just Suichiro getting fucked over, gets involved in something, has to fix it with the help of somebody from the cast. The prison itself isn't all that important, it's more of a backdrop. It's like being forced into some specialty school and you die if you don't conform to its rules, and it's why I dislike the school setting so much since it's just lazy more often than not. I watched a movie recently called like Space Meanders with Adam Sandler. The setting is in space, but what it's actually about is seldom about that at all. It's not for everyone and I'm going into it. I'm just using it as comparison that the actual Tulip Prism shouldn't be the central focal point, like how the mystery isn't the focal point of Yumi Neko as well. Anyways, like I said before, sometimes there's just big instances where it focuses too much on one aspect that doesn't really mix well with the theme. A good example of this is one route has like a gambling section and it spent a whole lot of time explaining blackjack and card counting, and I mean a lot. This route is the shortest of the bunch and it felt like it took maybe 20% of the whole route. Holy shit. Then compared to another route where it had a Yu-Gi-Oh reference, it was comical, it was semi-integral to the plot moving, but at the same time the original setup was around 10 minutes long. So it's a setup, how is this used for the plot, and there's the payoff. Not a setup that already required 2 better setups before the payoff happens, so holy shit. This doesn't happen all that much and it's why it's really noticeable here because like holy shit, it's maybe 3 times it happens. These are the parts where I can't really ever put it into a 10. It's not hugely important in the grand scheme of things, but when I can instantly pinpoint locations of what was kinda ass, it's hard to ignore it. There's 3 routes alongside the grand route. Noah is the route where I'd say it's the most well written, though that's ignoring how dumb Noah and Shuichiro can be in there. The final payoff is kinda weaker than the other 2, but at the same time there's a lot more of them at the same time. Taeka is my favorite. She has a lot more going on character-wise considering she was already there for a bit and has like a whole posse that's either interesting or funny as well. There's just more characters to bounce off of and it works well. Chisato is the worst route to the point that it actually got better when she wasn't around. Chisato herself is fine, and just it takes forever for anything substantial to actually happen. Instead of small issues popping up in intervals, it's more about her opening up. It's also the route that continues completely from the last part of the common route, which was the part that I found pretty ass, so she just got screwed over because of it. It's still the best route to start off with since it builds up the characters better for Taeka's route, but overall kind of takes a while for it to get going. There's technically issues with the grand route, but I also didn't really mind it. It's a coin flip of wanting everything to be explained on how all of these three routes are resolved at once, or just having overall implication of what was happening. It was still well written, but I get it if someone was complaining like that they wasted maybe an extra 3 hours or whatever rehashing what they already went through. Consider it like complaining that Grisaya 2 just retcons it all and you just have to accept it, or go through the whole midsection of Baldur's Sky because it was originally 2 games and that was a part to get people up to speed again. I think it was fine. Maybe one of these 3 could have been shortened a bit, but overall I didn't really have a problem with it. There's portions where I think the payoffs were amazing, and others where I get it, but it wasn't all that impactful compared to itself or even their own other titles. Part of that is it's more down to earth compared to Nukatashi. The final big bad is possibly more sentimental than the other ones, but there's also like no catharsis coming from it. It's one of those titles where I respect with where it went instead of going more for like the Big Bang impact finale. Technically you can consider the section before the finale is the Big Bang moment. It's when like shit falls into place. There's technically also an after story / like a pen for each route. You can skip the first 3 but try to go through the final one. It goes through what's happening with the main cast and even some of the supporting cast. There's a lot of H scenes slapped in there, and there's holy shit, there's so many, and that was kind of ass to the point I was kind of like contemplating of lowering my overall score because of it, but then it actually finishes well. Overall, I'm giving it high 8 to the point that's basically a 9. There's points in the plot where you go, now this is a 10, right? There's also just points where I'm also thinking, I should drop this. It's a lot more consistent and enjoyable than Nukatashi 1, and it doesn't have like the massive drop off compared to like Nukatashi 2. To Nukatashi 2's credit, the drop off happened after the main plot was actually done. It's all the after stories that dropped it down the whole fucking point. Otherwise, I put it higher than Hentai Prison. Hentai Prison is just a lot less dumb, and the humor is much more subdued and up my alley. It doesn't have the amazing impact of Nukatashi 1 or even like the smaller one Nukatashi 2. It's the trade-off for having a lot less stupid shit happening. It'd just be weird if it had the same level of crazy shit happening all the time. At the same time, outside of the big finale, the confrontations with the first set of antagonists were also more entertaining than the ones in Nukatashi. Sometimes it feels like I was watching an episode of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the season 2 one. The H scenes are still mostly ass, and the art itself doesn't do much for me aside of like a couple, maybe like 3 or 4 or 5, something like that. Though I guess you can call it unique, and when you know it, oh, this is from Krupo. This was also more of a company I'd read for its scenario than anything else. The music's also a massive downgrade compared to the other 2, but still does its job well. It does have parts where it feels padded, but at the same time, it was also secondly intentional. I put a lot of credit on the crap that retroactively changed the context and what was it going for. Well, when it was actually done well and not seem like it was an ass pull, but if every route was entertaining as Taeka's or written as well as like parts that I like from Noah or in the grand route, I guess, it'd be an easy 9 or possibly even a 10 if you're like really into the like slice of life sections. Not that much for spoilers this time around. I'd have to mention this now to make sense later. Outside of the Warden, the main 3 antagonists are Yugao, Julia, and Sophia. Each route has at least 2 of them doing shit. I mentioned before that I wasn't really a fan of Chisato's route. Half the route is having her open up to Shuichiro, basically putting some humanity back into her. And that's her having some experiences and someone to talk to so she can write better for her visual novel crap. I think I avoided mentioning before the group was making a VN the last chapter of the common route, where it was just them working on it for like 80% of the time of the arc and then getting fucked over and fixing it for the last 20%. I won't talk about it much outside of like that it's the only time I remember being bored a lot. There was still a lot of gold around, just a lot more infrequent. Chisato and Suichiro work together for a while until Yugao finds out that it just fucks them over because of it. So the idea is figuring how to kick her ass out of her position of power and getting Chisato out of her cell. Yugao is interesting in her own right, but the one that'll probably take your attention is Julia. Julie helps out in this route, and most of the stuff you learn isn't like Taeka's route for her. Anyways, this is when the route starts becoming interesting. They set up their own casinos that use the the prison's internal currency to the point that the actual cash becomes kind of useless in comparison. This is because he found a huge stash of it to use and uses Julie to get like converted to actual cash kind of thing. There's more to it, but it's not really important to what I'm talking about. It's that Chisato's caught and now Suichiro's like has shit to do to fix it. It's a lot of planning and he eventually gets screwed over as well. And you end up having like this whole section where he's already in his own cell and things are still happening. It's like he plans everything out. It's great. What's also kind of screwed up is that Chisato kind of has it going better inside Taeka's art as well. She's useful enough that Yugao changes her mind and she's basically like treating her as like an older sister type of thing. I mean Chisato for Yugao, you know what I mean. And while they kind of go over her eye and her own route, it just kind of gets ignored in the grand route for the most part. I think there's like 2 lines about it. True enough, I guess each route in the grand route gets shaved down to like how Noah is also a little less mature during it, but then again, her append story portion of her route has her back being kind of dumb anyway. I guess because it's between the routes and the epilogue, you get like, oh, it makes sense. Only the grand route and Chisato gets like an actual after story about everything else, just kind of dumb. Skipping the other 2 routes, the best part of the grand route is Suichiro's talk with Eriko. She's the doctor. I thought she'd have some kind of connection at the beginning, but eventually you see she's there to give what Suichiro always lacked. And I guess Suichiro also shows where she was lacking as well. I thought she'd get some more after that, but all you get is like a little bit in the extra for the after story. And the point is all of the impact moments didn't really matter to Suichiro. It was like the day-to-day interactions with everybody inside. He was pretty much like a neglected kid, so it makes sense why he's such a weirdo like throughout the whole thing. And it also makes sense that the last hurrah wasn't super impactful. Everybody in there just goes against the warden. Sure, there's a lot of action scenes, but none of it was really all that hype. Because they were for the most part just like normal people. It's not like Nukitashi where everybody was basically soldiers. I'm not really a fan of them continuing on making their own VN in the append. He could have done anything else, how considering like he knows what he has and what he was searching for. So sure, it makes, making the VN still counts, but it'd be nice if they showed him trying like a lot of different activities or see what he likes or doesn't like. And technically, like Chisato gets a lot more to that than him. It's like, what the fuck? The append has 2 sections. One has like 80% H scenes like the rest of the appends, and it's kind of ass. And then the other one is where it's all about the informant, what was going around when when Suichiro left. And that whole part was amazing. It was great. And there's a couple of characters where I thought there'd be more to them throughout the title. Like the informant actually gets a lot, like I said before. But then there's like this indoor shoe lady that gets like almost nothing. Even the informant's assistant gets something. It's like, oh, why her? She doesn't even have avatars. What the fuck? Sure, she could just be like a gag character like Kushimori. It just seemed like she'd get something more at the end, and she didn't. And that's about it. I'm back to reading my Otome. I saw the Mojiku came out, but I'm not really interested in it. From what I saw, the experience itself is cool, but the plot is apparently fucking dumb. I'm not sure what I'll push out next, probably like Color Malice or Current Call. But yeah, that's about it.